Are you ready for abundance? To awaken your physical nature and enjoy the fruits of your labor? In this episode, we share how to anchor the Taurus new moon with pragmatic and practical tips and tricks, grounded in the here and now. Hey there, Truth Seeker. Welcome to the Star Kittens community where we discuss 13 sign astrology. Are you in alignment with your divine design? Do you want to master the metaphysical reality? Open the doors of perception. Each planetary body is an archetype, a template, if you will, that helps us interpret human behavior and the world around us. The more awake and aware we are, the more synchronicity will show up in your life. Our focus today is the new moon in Taurus. We will highlight the conjunctions with Mercury, Uranus, and Ceres. To help us reach more souls with this important message, please like, share, and subscribe. There's a lot going on, so let's jump in. Kia ora, David.
Kia ora.
I love these early evenings, lighting the fireplace, the creature comforts that is very much this Taurus energy. For those who are new to 13 sign astrology, the Sun will move into Taurus around the 15th of May. And today we are going to talk about the new moon in Taurus, which here in New Zealand happens on the 17th of May at 8:01 in the morning, where the Sun and Moon are conjunct at 2 degrees Taurus. So let's talk about that energy first, David, of the Sun and Moon coming together in this earthly energy of Taurus.
Yeah, great place to start. So Sun and Moon, anytime you have those two energies coming together in a new moon, it's really a reset of a lunar 28-day cycle. So it's a fresh start. It's a chance to check in, especially after the fiery solar year that began on the 18th and 19th of April. Anytime you hit the Sun and Moon together, it's what I call a union of opposites. So this is a time when polarity evaporates, and by that I mean that we get a blending of the masculine fire of the Sun and the feminine water of the Moon, and they become one. So we're talking here about action and emotion, action for the Sun and fire, and emotion for the Moon integrating, and it's a great opportunity therefore to build and focus on emotional intelligence. Of course, we describe the moon as the repository of soul. So anytime there's a sun-moon conjunction or a new moon, the soul memories are likely to be very active. So just be aware that you could have vivid dreams, a sense of astral or time traveling in your sleep, reverie, silent lucidity, just with those energies of the sun and the moon being right on top of each other. You could become aware of past or parallel realities. Of course, the soul exists outside of the time and space continuum. So that's what we mean by past or parallel realities. You can tune into realities that are beyond what you can physically touch and taste and feel and see in the Taurus realm. Of course, we'll touch on this a little later with Uranus, but it's a time for insight and inspired action. But in a very practical sense, when you have the Taurus energy, this would be a good time to try something like a new recipe or new clothes or new shoes. It's a good time to reset and have a fresh start in that physical realm. Taurus, of course, is relating to the physical experience. So start a new habit, do something that is positive and uplifting, that is affirming for your physical health and growth. This energy is basic, it's fundamental, it's grounded in practical reality, the here and now. Things like gardening, exercise, physical therapy are all supported, as are meditation and mindfulness and just being still, especially out in nature. If you've got the opportunity to just be still in nature and just listen and merge yourself with the birds or the bees or whatever is going on outside, the wind even. Of course, the Taurus energy reminds us, if I go back to the lunation of 18-19 February of the solar new year, that we're talking about strong foundations. Taurus is about strong foundations. Of course, Taurus is symbolized by the bull. So anything that you're building at this time, just make sure that there's a focus on it's going to last. If there's one thing about Taurus that we know is that it is, as I mentioned, it is foundational, and so therefore it's very important to get those roots right, and to physically focus at this particular time.
Yeah, I think it is so important that we make those foundations solid, that we don't just become this willy-nilly, just try this for a little bit, just take your time. Maybe with this Mercury energy that I think we'll talk about shortly, is make that plan ahead of then starting it. So let's talk about this first conjunction. It's a busy time in Taurus, and there's many conjunctions we'll talk about. But let's start with Mercury that sits at 4 degrees Taurus. How do you see that energy playing out?
Well, the energy of Mercury is the energy of the mind, the left brain, the thinking brain, the critical thinking and communication. So again, when we have a conjunction in the context of two things in Taurus, but also following this is about a month after that that solar cycle began. And I keep referring back to that because for those that are using astrology as an opportunity to maybe set some intentions about a month ago in April, this would be a good time now under that Mercury energy to check in on some of that. So if you started a plan in alignment with the solar cycle, 18-19 April, about a month ago, or about a month prior to this new moon in Taurus, the Mercury energy would be encouraging those people to check in, to analyze, to understand where they're at, to use that practical left brain analysis, but also in the sense of, like you said, planning something in the physical world. This could be, planning a flower bed, an exercise regime, anything where there's some physical creation, putting a bit of thought into it to make sure that it actually works properly. Intellectually approach health was something else that came to mind. So things like working with where you have a mind-body relationship, and we're talking about the Taurus body or the physical reality, something like working with your meridians or engaging a chiropractor, or engaging in specific yoga asanas that may activate parts of your body where you're connecting the brain to the body and you're thinking about, if I do this, then I'm likely to get this over here. So it's a very much a calculating energy. Mercury, of course, is also very much about mapping things out. And so when we're thinking about the physical world, as I said, if you are, say, applying this in a very practical sense, it might be thinking about a new recipe and getting very clear about what those steps are, or you might be creating something like knitting a sweater or doing something in the garden. Even formal dancing would be an example of this, where the dancing is the physical side and the Mercury is that I'm going to do certain types of movements to gain a certain type of benefit from it, as opposed to just free-form dancing, which would be another energy altogether. So Mercury, like the Sun and Moon in Taurus, is pretty basic here. There's not a lot really to analyse or interpret it from it, other than it does involve us thinking and engaging in critical thought and communication and assessment and evaluation, and particularly of any projects that you're starting at this new moon, or any projects or plans that you started a month ago on April 18-19, when the Sun first went into Aries and began the new solar year.
Yes, and using Mercury in the right way to start perhaps a new habit. Some of our listeners might have heard of the book Atomic Habits. It's also the language that we use. I myself, rather than having this phrase of my goal is to be at the gym 2 times a week, but someone said, how about your standard is once, and anything extra is a bonus. So whether you want to do multiple things in a week to be physically active. Just kind of, especially in the busy lives that we lead, is to be kind to yourself as well, and don't get angry or annoyed, disappointed with you when you don't live up to your goals. So today I will do asanas. Today I'm going to walk for 30 minutes and kind of pick and choose what works for you in this time to help quiet your busy mind and be physically grounded. So the next conjunction, you briefly mentioned it before, is the one with Uranus, where Uranus sits at 7 degrees Taurus.
Yeah, Uranus and Taurus, this is a very interesting combination, simply because if Uranus is representing air and Taurus represents earth, and when you think about water and earth, it's a very nice combination, but air and earth potentially is an explosive combination insofar as if air is pumped into the earth, then it disturbs the earth. But if air blows over the surface of the earth, it can also disturb the surface, or it can cool the surface, or it can do all sorts of things. So there's a very interesting interaction between the air of Uranus and the earth of Taurus. But if we specifically focus on Uranus, this is, for those that are aware, is represented by lightning. Therefore, it gives the metaphor or the sense that Uranian energy can strike at any time. Uranus is considered to be an activator. And so when we are thinking about a new moon in Taurus, and we've also got the Mercury energy as well, what this means in a very practical sense is that you may get some insights, some eureka moments. If you're dealing with a problem or an issue or a business, or a plan or a project, or you're studying, you may get some breakthroughs, you may get some profound inspiration, divine inspiration coming through. You may be more likely to experience synchronicities and serendipities when it comes to Uranian energy. You may hear from spirit, your star family, from angels, from your guides. You may unlock a problem or find a solution as you use that Mercury energy to think. You may be it may be boosted, if you like, or propelled, if you like, by Uranian energy. But the key thing for me with Uranus, anytime it's involved in any lunation, any reading at all, is that like lightning, it can strike at any time, and you don't know when it's going to strike. Perhaps you might get a heads up because it's grey and cloudy and the weather's a little moody, as opposed to a nice clear day. You're unlikely to get lightning at that time. But even on a dark, cloudy day, you may or may not get lightning. You may hear thunder but not get lightning, if you know what I mean. So I guess what I'm saying is, expect the unexpected. But the key thing for me with the Uranian energy, because it can be so upsetting, is that if we go back to the Taurus energy, is make sure we're grounded, so that if something does happen, I describe Uranian energy or Uranian strikes in our life as either breakdowns or breakthroughs, but they're really the same thing. If something breaks down, then on the other side of it is a breakthrough. And a breakthrough becomes because something broke down. So again, if I'm linking the energy of Taurus and Mercury here, and I'm thinking about the solar new year that began on April 1819, and someone kicked off a project and they're about a month into it and they're beginning to think and evaluate that. It might have been an exercise regime, it might have been something that they're working on in their business, they might be writing a book, they might be doing some creative endeavor, whatever it is. You might have hit the wall a little bit at the moment. You may be evaluating it using Mercury, and you're sitting there thinking, where do I go next? Well, this is where the Uranian energy may show up, but equally, it might not show up. So, again, if I was to give just a practical example of how the Taurus new moon following the solar beginning on April 1819 with Mercury, with Uranus at this time, how it's working out for me is that, I work in data, and one of the things that I'm doing at the moment is linking that data and the insights that I get from data, this is in the economics and the financial world, is linking that data into actionable insights. So the actionable insights would be Mercury, but the breakthrough as to how I can do that more effectively or better came to me the other day with a kind of, I woke up early and had a little bit of a download or a strong intuition to start tracking my time. And that's a very, so I'm now into the second day of that, and I've got a spreadsheet, and literally every minute I'm spending on a task, I'm tracking it. And what that's allowing me to do is to get a very grounded, practical, very clear-eyed view of my data business and how I can use it more effectively in the future. So that would be an example of how I, for others listening, am grounding my energy in a practical business, and then using the analytics and the analytical mind of Mercury to think about that. And then I didn't ask for this, but I got this sort of divine inspiration, this download as to, why don't you try this? Because after, a month or so of tracking your time, you're going to get a really clear idea as about how you can be even more effective in delivering your services to the market. So there's a nice practical example of Taurus energy, building a foundation, Mercury energy, thinking and reflecting, and then the Uranian inspiration and insight, or eureka moment, that led to a kind of a breakthrough for me as to how I can move forward again, step by step, in a very practical way. And I share that example just for those listening who might be thinking, how do we link these energies together?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I think having these types of examples is really helpful, because some people might be listening going, oh yeah, I think I know how to apply that in my life. But by hearing a really practical way of doing it, I think we give people a good insight into that. The final conjunction that we will talk about today, and that we will conclude the reading with, is the one with Ceres. And Ceres stands for the Mother Earth. This beautifully aligned with this Taurus energy for me. And she's sitting at 1 degree Taurus at this new moon. So just a reminder that the sun moon is sitting at 2 degrees. So she's pretty much sitting on top of. So how do you see this Mother Earth, Gaia energy interacting with the new moon?
Yeah, Ceres, there are different archetypes that relate to the Earth and the Earth Mother, and depending on the mythology that we're referring to. We talked previously about Haumea as another Earth Mother type archetype that certainly comes up in the astrological mosaic. So there are the Earth itself, then you've got Ceres, and you have also Haumea, and there may be some other archetypes or star signs or fixed stars that relate to this Earth Mother energy. But when Ceres, who is called the Earth Mother, is in Taurus, we get a beautiful alignment, obviously, where you get almost a double whammy of the Earth energy. So again, in the context of a new moon in Taurus, this is to me is an amplification of the underlying Taurus energy. So it is making it making it even bigger, if you like. The Earth Mother, as you mentioned, and using some practical examples of how we might use that Mercury thinking energy, and then the energy of, say, Uranus. I was thinking about what could you do. One of the things would be to arrange your environment to support whatever it is that you're doing. So that might mean looking at the principles of feng shui, for example. Some people are into that, some people aren't into that, but personally I find some of the feng shui principles are pretty cool, because if you go into a room, for example, a home office, a bedroom, a lounge room, and you have some of those principles in mind, which is that kind of that Mercury planning of a physical environment in Taurus and how you can bring these energies together, you might think, it would be quite nice to have a water feature, or it'd be quite nice to have an indoor plant, or it'd be quite nice to have some sort of fire energy in the room, or some metal energy or wood energy. Those are the types of ideas where we're taking the very practical nature of Mercury and Taurus with Ceres, and it would be arranging your environment, arranging your bedroom so that you sleep really well, so that you can rest and recover very well. Making sure there's no clutter on the floor. Again, that would be the practical example of the Mercury energy applied to Ceres and Taurus. I also say that in the context of Uranus can strike when we, almost like, if you arrange your environment, you may in fact encourage the Uranian energy to come through. That's another aspect of this. If it's cluttered and messy and so on and so forth, you may in fact energetically not be in a position to receive the Uranian insight. And you may equally, I have an expression of a messy environment often comes from a messy mind. So when we see our environment reflected back to us, it gives us feedback. So I know everyone's different like that, and some people can work in mess and they can be very creative in mess, but there are others who might be more like myself, who like to have a nice tidy desk and everything is in its place. Well, this is a practical energy of Mercury conjunct Ceres and Taurus and a new moon. So those feng shui principles come to mind, working with the elements in your environment, eliminating noise, but also another part of this is to do with a mindset of abundance. If Ceres is the Earth Mother, then being thankful for all that she gives to us, and actually expressing that, saying, I'm thankful for the food on my table, or I'm thankful for the roof over my head, or I'm thankful for the clothes on my back. It's all come from Mother Earth, after all. So an attitude of gratitude and mindfulness, again, is a practical example of preparing ourselves perhaps for the Uranian insight. You know, if we're sitting there and we've got a clear space and we've got nice clear intentions under the new moon, the new cycle, and we are being thankful for Mother Earth and what she's given to us and our abundance, then we may in fact receive some flash of insight, some divine inspiration, some breakthrough that comes through that Uranian energy. And the last thing I'd say here about Ceres is enjoy the fruits of your labour. So before you asked me, I was sitting there having a cup of coffee, and one of the things I like to do after my work is done, always at midday, I've done the dishes, I've had a morning of work, and I have a little 10 minutes just of enjoying a really delicious coffee. And this would be a great example of enjoying the abundance. I put cream, fresh cream in my coffee, and it was just delicious. Today it was just delicious, and I've really felt like, yes, I'm thankful for the cow that produced that cream, the beautiful coffee beans, the nice hot cup of coffee. This was Ceres and Taurus, and being in an attitude of gratitude. After I'd done my work, Mercury, and I'd spent a morning working, and I was just able to just sit there and just be like, isn't this awesome? So enjoy the fruits of your labour, enjoy making a special meal, enjoy walking around outside depending on the season, enjoy listening to the different sounds of nature, pat a cat, walk the dog, go have a spa, whatever. You get the point. So Ceres is encouraging us to just enjoy the physical aspects of life.
As we should. Thank you. So if you have enjoyed listening to this conversation, you can find all our videos on YouTube. We have our podcast also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere else that you can find or listen to your podcast. We follow 13 sign astrology, so we look at the true position of the planetary bodies in the night sky. And if you have been intrigued by astrology but have always followed 12 sign, then perhaps stepping into your true divine design can help you make the quantum leap that you are looking for. So get in touch. We are on Telegram, other social media platforms like Instagram, and we would love to connect with you. Ngā mihi.
Namaste.
Until next time.